Hey, hey. Well, it's another cold, wet autumn day here in the Northern Hemisphere in Wrexham, North Wales, which I'm speaking to you from. I'm Rich Hebblewhite, your friendly, local, global Director of Programs and Events here at Global Game Jam. And this week in this episode, we have got an absolute banger for you. If you're cold and you're wet and you're thinking, good Lord, life couldn't get any worse than this, well, we've got something that might cheer you up a little bit. This week, we've got a packed lineup of amazing indie game devs, and we're going to be telling their stories and their origins at Global Game Jam, because let's not forget, Global Game Jam is one of the biggest and largest producers of IP, raw IP, and also it has a huge impact on the global indie games startup scene. And we have a whole bunch of really good examples of exactly that with us today. So without further ado, let's bring in our amazing guests and we'll get started. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello everyone. Hi.
Lovely to meet you all. Max, would you like to go first?
Oh yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm Max. I'm creative director at Housefire. We're a smallish indie company based in Gothenburg, Sweden. Just a few months ago, we released our first game called Eclipsium, which started as a global game jam game back in 2023, and it's a cool little moody horror walking simish sort of game. But I think you should check it out if you want to really, get it or whatever. So yeah, that's me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's amazing to have you here, and I'm such a big fan of all things indie. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm too excited. I can't stop talking. I'm so excited. So Sam, who's going to go next? Konstantin, Serhii, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah. So we're a small indie studio based in Kiev, in Ukraine, and we're working on our first project right now that started on Control-Alt Disinfo Jam in February this year. So yeah, we're young, by all means, in the studio.
Konstantin, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hello. My name is Konstantin. Also, as Serhii said, it's our studio. We used to take part in Global Game Jam in 2025, and we are co-founders of Left Band Interactive. It's our studio which we used to open after Global Game Jam.
Thanks. I didn't want you to feel neglected. That was all. And for context, yeah, you guys participated in our Control-Alt-Disinfo jam, which was an amazing project that we ran earlier this year, which was a jam project themed on combating global disinformation. So that was the theme of that jam, and there was a whole bunch of amazing games. And you guys produced an absolutely amazing game, and you, of course, you're still working on it. And I'm sure we'll hear lots more about that as
Thanks
we
a lot.
progress.
Thank you.
Shagufta, Kinshuk, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, so Kinshuk and I are co-founders of Second Quest, a young indie studio, and we're based out of India. And we're a small team of 5 people that all got together at Global Game Jam 2024. We were all old friends who just happened to be together, and one thing led to another, and we have a studio now.
That's an amazing story in of itself, and we're definitely going to come back and talk more about that story. I sense there's drama there somewhere. There's a story to unpack that we need to get to grips with and tell the world about, right? Tom, you ready, mate?
Yep. So I'm Tom. I'm the managing director of FreeRangeDevs, a small game studio based in North Wales, the United Kingdom. We've got a team of 4 roughly. We have people that come and go, and we take on a lot of student placements as well. We've been running since March of last year, and pretty much our studio started because we took on our game mover, which started from Global Game Jam last year as well. And
yeah, that's great. It's another awesome example of how sometimes just a strange little idea that you work on in a jam can kind of just take you on a journey that is unexpected. And sometimes it's maybe less about the game and more about the people. I'm sure we'll hear some more about that. So, okay, let's get started then. I think the first question I really just want to ask really is, what is your journey? Tell us about how you got from where you are, from where you were to where you are, and the relationship to Global Game Jam, right? So you guys either met at the Jam or the game that you're working on started at the Jam. So Kinshuk, do you want to jump in and pick up where you left off? Tell us how you got started.
Sure. Our relationship with Global Game Jam is very old. So just a little bit of history about us. Like Shagufta mentioned, we are 5 founding team members. We all met at Global Game Jam 2024. We have been friends together for a very long time. But this idea of getting together and starting a studio happened at the Game Jam. In fact, our creative director is currently a board member for Global Game Jam. His name is Yadu Rajiv. And our CTO, the guy who's driving engineering, he's the regional organizer for India. And I have been a site organizer for multiple cities in India for Global Game Jam. In fact, when the Indie Supporter Program was started, we learned later that we ended up being the first people to sign up for Indie Supporter. Along with Global Game Jam, we've been doing a lot of community development in India itself for the last 16 years. We run something called Game Dev India, which is a local community of about 8,000 game developers in the country. And we've been organizing a game jam called Build Your Own Game for the last 15 years in India. And this year was the largest one that we did. When in 2024 we met at Global Game Jam, we were just putting our heads together about what's next for us. I have been doing a game development company for over a decade here in India. We're doing a lot of outsourced development services for big brands. And Shagufta comes from a media background. She has been developing a lot of interesting IP, media IPs throughout her career. So we were putting some ideas together and we were exploring what we could do. And then with Yadu, Vivek, and Shubhank, it's just magically out of different conversations, it just
I think the energy, the creative energy of a jam site, I think, led us to a reckless behavior of quitting our jobs and starting a studio.
Yeah. And then that's how Second Quest started. We're focusing on building simulation games. The first one that we're working on right now is a sandbox model trains simulator. So,
yeah.
There's a lot of people that will be super excited at the thought of that. One of my good friends is an actual train spotter, so he might be falling off his seat now. You just sort of said that with excitement, yeah, which is great. So you guys, you started at the Jam, right? So you've been jamming for a long time, all of you, and you're well versed with it. So when you met at GGJ 24, at that particular one, you went into that not really planning then to form a studio. You just kind of went along to to enjoy the event. Really, is that kind of how it started? And then you kind of created something that you really felt you could do something with, and that's how it started. Is that correct?
So it was a new site that we were supporting and nurturing in India, and it was their first jam. So all of us, because we do this game developer community, we sort of went there to support the local community and guide them on how to do a productive game jam. Shagufta and I, we were toying with the idea of starting Second Quest, but with the other 3 friends, that was the first moment where we could actually think of a studio, think of games, and sort of bring all of those different ideas into a very sensible shape.
Yeah, it's amazing. By the way, I want to give a shout out to the Game Dev India guys, because I'm a member of the Game Dev India group, and I know that it is super active and there's a lot of really passionate people. And of course, you guys host what you call campfires, right? Which is where these sort of regular sort of meetups. And I really like that. I like the name. It resonated with me. I thought it was a really good idea. And you have all these regular meetups. So if you're interested in learning more about the game scene in that part of the world, then that's a really good place to start. So that's an amazing story. Thank you. Okay, Serhii and Konstantin, do you want to tell us a bit about your journey and how you guys got started and kind of how that's led you to where you are now?
Yep, sure. Actually, we started trying to develop our game even before the Global Game Jam. Unfortunately, our attempts was unsuccessful. But I think actually our first attempt was a global RPG with open world. I guess all developers go through this stage with
Dream
small
game.
teams and like just ambitious. Yeah, we took on too much. We have I guess core problems with development, with some core things. So we don't have that experience. Go through the times. Actually, our second attempt was Game Jam. It's Serhii. Do you remember which was Game Jam?
Not exactly, unfortunately.
Okay. It was like small Game Jam with also with idea and 3 days for development. And our game was actually not really good. We were banned from the marking because of the pure quality of our game, unfortunately. And it's our third attempt. It's actually was Global Game Jam, Control Alt Design 4, and I saw at my home university a message from my student community that it's going to be a global game jam with these topics and so on. And I sent this message to Serhii, and he said it's a cool idea, it's a cool opportunity, and we have to take part in that jam. And
yeah,
I guess Serhii can continue my story.
Yeah, I can continue it. So we took a part in Control Alt Design for Jam. And we were in top 8 best games out of 175, as I remember. It was a big surprise for us.
27 countries, I believe, involved as well. So that's a great achievement. It's a really good achievement.
Yeah, thank you. We were surprised pretty much. And at that point, we thought that maybe this project deserves a bit more than just a Game Jam project. So we continue to develop it, and right now we're still developing it. Our team now is 5 people, and we're planning to release the full game in next year. So yeah, that's our journey.
And are you guys still students now? You're still studying whilst doing this, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that's even more impressive then, right? So you're doing your studies and trying to run a studio on the side, which is no mean feat. It's very difficult to do, and I've seen a lot of examples of folks who've tried to do that, and it's been very difficult for them. And if you can make it work, then that gives you a huge boost in terms of your career development and the kind of opportunities that move forward. And maybe we'll talk a bit more about that as we go. Max.
Oh yeah, hi. So my background is if some of you are students, I guess you're a bit younger than me. I'm 33, and for the last 12 years I've been working or studying in the games industry, and I'm a regular participant and like host of jams here in Gothenburg in Sweden. So this Global Game Jam next year will be my 20th jam that I've hosted and my 5th Global Game Jam. So we organized this jam site here in Gothenburg that I think we're cruising towards 200 participants this year or next year, which is super fun. So our company Housefire is actually the guys who started it are prior students of mine. I teach, I guess I'm professor emeritus at this point at a vocational school where I teach game design and 3D modeling. And to be completely honest, my team at Global Game Jam 2023 actually snubbed those guys for the top prize. So those guys developed the game prototype called Rooted in Darkness that then became Eclipsium. I only joined once they had secured funding, because I guess I'm a dad. I have some financial responsibilities, I guess.
You're smart. You wait for them to get the money and then you
Wait
join
for
it
the
back.
success
I like
story,
it.
yeah.
That's a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I we took like for us the prototype that they made during Global Game Jam was sort of an aesthetic verification, like, okay, there is something here. But as you said, Rich, I don't know if this was in the prior conversation or this one, the game kind of morphed a lot during development, which is not uncommon at all. But I think that visual core still stuck around. So, okay, here you can see our trailer, part of it. So there's this super bit crunched, pixel 3D aesthetic. So a lot of what I did as creative director was actually co-working as art director to make sure that, because the game is really low fidelity, so we only have the composition and like the colors and the lighting to actually sell the tone of the game. And yeah, so I guess that's how the game came to be. So the guys, they actually we have this internship program as the last term of school. There's a 2-year education, and those guys were allowed to work on Eclipsium at they could intern at their own company, so to speak. It was really cool because it's hard to secure funding because school in Sweden is funded. It's free, I guess. So they had 6 months of free dev time, and then they managed to springboard that into some capital. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And the fact that they were able to work the project alongside their academic studies, and that the academic program that you have was able to facilitate that is good. And I think it's important to point out that all the different ecosystems around the world are just that little bit different. And in some places, you can be quite lucky, and that there's quite a little bit of support there to help you kind of get started. And in other cases, it's that little bit more difficult because maybe there are no games related degrees and courses and things like that, or the ecosystem just really isn't there, and you're kind of building it. Right. Yeah. But that's what Global Game Jam's for, right? To get people together and build things and make crazy things happen. And that's what it's all about. Speaking of making crazy things happen, Tom, do you want to tell us your story?
So yeah, when I did a game degree in game development. My first Global Game Jam was actually during that degree. Just a bunch of us kind of went off to it was actually the jam site that Rich was hosting, and yeah, we made a small little game there. And then I ended up finishing my degree. There weren't many game studios in North Wales, and I kind of hit this point where I had to get a job. So I was obviously making those little games on the side, figuring stuff out. But I had to get a job, and I ended up spending nearly 5 years working as a 3D artist doing architectural visualization. I was still making games on the side. I think kind of towards the end of that, I started going back to doing more game jams. When the pandemic hit, I ended up taking part in loads of Ludum Dares, which kind of like really built up my confidence, I guess, in actually game development, and kind of re-brought that passion for it again, really. And then that kind of led to me taking part in Global Game Jam again, and kind of bringing some of the friends I'd made from my job doing architectural visualization. So we did I think 2 Global Game Jams. One of them was remote, and then the third one we did was last year, and that's where we kind of came up with the idea for our game Rover. So just kind of for context, Rover's a cozy space rover photography game where you kind of it's super chill. You kind of just go around like big spherical planets where you can drive all the way around and just sort of take photos of everything. It's the fantasy of, like you are controlling like a Mars rover type thing, and just what can you find? And these worlds are full of alien life, and you have this big database where you can literally catalog everything, even down to like different types of rocks and stuff that are on these worlds. But yeah, so we took part in the game jam, had this little prototype that was really different to our current version. It was like a small, I guess it was like a local co-op kind of style game. Like the camera was all top down, and you could like control different rovers. We hadn't really got it planned out much more than that, other than we kind of wanted to like build and move things in the game, which is you don't do any of that in the current version of Rover. And then, well, we went back to work for about another 2 months after that. We were talking about like, oh, we should carry on this idea. We all liked the idea. Different people who like had played the game at the jam site, or like friends we'd sent it to, were like really, really keen on the game, but kind of work-life balance kind of got in the way there, I guess. So it kind of went to the side, and then we all suddenly got made redundant. Pretty much as a result of the end of the pandemic, really, that the company ended up closing down, and we were in this position where we had to figure out what to do with ourselves. And that sort of gave us the nudge, really, to start a game studio. We had this prototype that we'd made in Global Game Jam, and I kind of pushed everyone that I've been trying to push for ages to start a studio, just to kind of give it a chance, really. So kind of alongside that job, I was still making my own personal little projects, and one of those had funding to go to small events to showcase it. And kind of as I was getting towards the end of that funding period, we had one event left, which was WASD. So I was made redundant 6 weeks before WASD, and I already had a demo for my personal project, so like that was already there. I didn't really have to do anything for it. But I thought, well, how about we kind of challenge ourselves to take our game jam project to the next level, I guess, over those 6 weeks and showcase it there. For me, it wasn't really much of a risk because I didn't have a job anymore, so I didn't have to worry about the time there, and I already had a game I could have showed anyway. So yeah, in 6 weeks we managed to make a demo. We thought, we'll focus on the research rover, as we were calling it at that point, because the original idea had different rovers that had different jobs, and people loved the game. We managed to do it in 6 weeks. People really liked it. We had really good feedback, and that sort of is how our company got kickstarted, really. Like we built it up from there. We released that demo that we'd made in 6 weeks. Kind of treated it like early access. It isn't early access, it's a free demo, but we've kind of been regularly making updates and releasing that game in the early access style workflow, where we like release big content drops and sort of document what we're doing along the way as well. And it's been really kind of interesting seeing the feedback from everyone at these different events or these different stages of development. And it's funny, when I was asked about getting footage for this, or talking about doing this talk that we're at now, I have this habit of just storing and collecting like every build, every version of projects that I ever do. And so I've just got hard drives all over my house full of old stuff. So I ended up kind of scouring through all the footage and everything. And it was really amusing going back and looking at this small prototype that we'd made and kind of where it is now, a year and a half later. Yeah, and since then we've had funding as well. So yeah, it was March last year we started, and then recently we had a grant for about 46,000, which has kind of covered us for the next 6 months. Before that, I was just sort of like covering myself for half a year off my own back. Same goes for the rest of us. We all took the risk because we believed in the project, and fortunately it's paying off. And then we're looking at actually doing proper early access release of the game, like paid early access, in about Q1 2026. Yeah.
So to summarize, you went from not working in games to losing your job that was not in games, but had some game tech related stuff. So going through a game jam, making a small prototype, taking that prototype, forming a studio, launching it as early access, and then getting that project funded by the government through via a grant, and now that's what you do full time.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Therein lies a great example of the Global Game Jam journey, and how through this remarkable set of events that we run annually, all these amazing things that happen, but they start small. And I guess that's a really nice segue into the next question, which is, what kind of advice would you give to folks who would like to jam and they're thinking about what kind of game they might want to make? And because quite often folks come to a jam and they have a team that they come with and they just want to make something. Some folks come to a jam and they don't have a team, or they might not even have any ideas. They just want to go with the flow and kind of meet up with folks and be creative. And other folks have kind of got a set idea already, and then they're trying to figure out a way of making this idea work with whatever the theme may be when they get there. So I'm interested to know, when you consider all of those different ways and methods, what is your method for how you jam? And I guess the key thing we're looking for is scope, right? And this idea that we start small and we don't do what Serhii and Konstantin were talking about, where we're going to try to make this massive RPG in like a week or something crazy, because it's like really difficult. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll start with you guys first, right? Konstantin and Serhii, what's your advice for like how to jam and get something fruitful from a small jam? What's your method?
Actually, we guess that the main idea for our main advice is to don't be afraid of some difficulties, be strong and motivated, because everything what you go through, it's a good experience, and such experience as a jam is really, I guess, it's must have for anyone who is trying to begin his development, his game development, or something dedicated to related to the games industry. So actually my main advice is to don't be afraid. And actually it's not related only to games, it can be related generally in whatever you do in your life.
Yeah, I think be brave is a really nice message. Sorry, yeah, go.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that my advice will be to brainstorm really hard and really huge, I think. But because you definitely need that one special idea that has suddenly appeared in your head that can be developed and become a really good project. And I think that cutting a scope is also really important, because we don't usually have like 10 years to develop a game. And for a game jam project, it's very important to kind of release your game, complete it, even if it has only like a few aspects, but it's important that they need to function well. So yeah, scope must be strictly cut it.
Yeah, I agree. And if you've only got 48 hours, for example, then the key is to make something that you can play. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look very good. You can play it. And then quite often, the sooner you get to this initial early prototype phase, which you can then just iterate and improve and evolve, and we've heard this already a few times from folks today, the sooner you get to that phase, the quicker you'll start to realize that you've got something that works, that feels interesting, feels intuitive, and then you can build on it, and then you can spend that time and make it look beautiful, later on, right? And I think it's an important message, especially for folks who've never jammed before. If you're new to game jams in general, scope is your number one enemy, as will be lack of sleep, more than likely, if you try to just power through. So Kinshuk and the gang, do you want to tell us your method, your secret? What's your secret to successful jams?
So I usually try and follow two very strong rules for my jam experiences. First is to have a very clear objective. So I typically either jam to try out an idea, explore, if a game, like whether the prototype of it would be fun to play, and if it's something that we can build on top of, or I would jam to try out a new tool or a new technique, something like that. So that's the first rule I follow. Like I have a very clear objective, what I'm trying to achieve out of this jam. The second rule that I strongly follow is I never try and make something which I feel will take me more than 4 hours to build. and maybe then I'll be able to finish in 48 hours.
Yeah, start very, 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 very small. Yeah. Under promise, over deliver. That's the goal, right?
Yes.
yeah, definitely. Max, what do you say?
All right, so yeah, where to start? I think that I was listening to the rest of you guys, and I think I agree. It's all great advice, but if we're talking to first time or people are just getting into jamming or getting into game development, like many have been students or are even currently students, or I think that game development is a muscle, and game jamming is on top of that an additional challenge. I mean, we see companies take years to produce a game, and I think every time someone just pushes publish on Steam, it's like such a triumph. It's like almost impossible to release a game, and to make anything in 48 hours is really difficult. So I think that you should be fine with not comparing yourself to anyone for honestly your the first 10 jams you attend. Like, it's just gaining repetitions, learning how this 48-hour cycle actually works, because it does have sort of a predictable loop once you get into it, I've found. And I think that, I mean, many jams have a contest aspect to it. People like me who are a bit competitive kind of like that, but I'm also a bit torn. Like, maybe a competition isn't really the best climate to allow for total creative output. And I think that something that I really strive for is that I often jam with the same team, and those are friends of mine, and I tend to ask them or get asked to just have some faith in this idea that I'm presenting right now. I'd rather follow a vision for something maybe a bit odd or out there and take it all the way, than trying to preemptively find all the reasons why this is a bad idea. I think that all ideas that come to us, they have a spark of something interesting, and if you could just cultivate that. And I mean, all the jam games that I've made for the last 10 years start as something and end as something slightly different, because you have to allow the game to become the artifact that exists in between the team members. Like, games aren't made by 4 people or 5 people sitting quietly at their computers working. It's obviously made in the conversations between people, and then we just use our tools to actually manifest the thing that we're all envisioning. So yeah, be okay with sucking, take a chance on something strange. And I think if you're below 30 or at least below 25, I have the worst advice, and that is cut back on the sleep, at least because you're able to. I think it's okay if you're healthy, if you think it's fun, see it as a marathon event. Take a rest day afterwards, and if you're older like me, then drink a lot of water, I guess. Yeah.
So just to add to what Max said, just a tiny story about me. It took me 6 jams to finish my first game. So
right.
It's not easy.
Then you were faster than most, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's quite a few really interesting messages from some of the things we're talking about here. And the first one for me is that jams I really liked the analogy that you used, which is game dev is a muscle, and like any muscle, you need to flex it and exercise it, and then it gets stronger. Jams are an excellent way. Jams are like gyms for game dev muscles, right? You go to the game jam, and it allows you to experience an entire game dev cycle in a very condensed period of time. So you learn a lot about how to ideate, go through brainstorming, you go through that initial expansion of the idea, and then you contract that idea down when you realize we're never going to build that in 48 hours, and then you cut away all the stuff and you make something, and maybe it works if you're lucky at the end of it. But that's an entire game dev cycle. And as we've just been talking about, some folks may not release their game for 10 years because as creative people, we have a tendency to care a little bit too much about our projects, and we just want to make it that little bit more perfect before we show it to the world, when really we want to be thinking, you know what, I just want to make something work. I want to test this idea to see if it has credibility, and then maybe I can do something with it. And you guys, all of you here today, are perfect examples of folks who, in the end, by one way or another, even after 6 jams, maybe, I don't know, but you got that idea, and then you decided, yeah, actually, we've got something here we can do something with, and now you've got this journey that you're on that started with this kind of jam philosophy, which is, you know, start small, keep it simple, work with people, and go from there. And I think that's a really important part of the journey. Tom, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I think just kind of jumping off a lot of the advice that like I usually give is stuff that has already been said by everyone here, but I think kind of take on this idea of goals, you know, figuring out your goals within a game jam. I personally like to you know, I'll set myself a goal that isn't necessarily have a finished game. So kind of when I started, one of my first things was like, can I finish a game within this time? And that's something I figured out. But I also figured out it could be really valuable just having like a very specific kind of smaller goal within it. So for example, let's say you have a game idea for a platformer, just kind of focusing on the character movement and jumping around. Like, is it just fun to move around this environment, and kind of using it as an excuse to really focus on and dial in, you know, your character controller, getting that character moving. One of my previous jams was for Ludum Dare, and that was it was a simple platformer, but the focus was procedural animation. I'd never done it before, and I really wanted to give it a go. So I kind of created this like spider creature that would walk along. The art wasn't great. It kind of ended up looking kind of similar to Limbo because I didn't want to spend time thinking about color. So I just made it kind of black and gray. All the art was literally just using like, I think it was just like square and circle sprites all the way through. And then it ended up getting, I think it was like the 80th position out of like thousands of people, and like, you know, quite a lot of people. And just for the mood category, even though it was just this kind of spider that would move along and you were jumping around, but like, yeah, my big takeaway from that basically was, you know, I built up the knowledge of how to do procedural animation, and then again another kind of later jam, I was like, well, I want to work on this even further, and I'd already learned loads from that previous jam, and I hadn't really done any procedural animation in between, but I was able to take that. I kind of took what I learned about using squares and circles to quickly kind of prototype the art and build up a level. So I kind of had everything there. It was almost like a version 2, I guess, but with more dynamic creatures. And then again, that was really successful. I think that scored even higher in some of the positions, which was brilliant. Wasn't necessarily the aim. I just wanted to kind of improve that like technical skill, I guess, of having these different creatures whilst kind of building on what I already had. I think from one of my other game jams as well, I really wanted to just kind of focus on, I guess, like the time management aspect and kind of the speed side of it. And one thing that a lot of people would argue and say, don't bother putting in a menu in your game, for example, like, you know, let's focus on the core of the game. But I really wanted to have a quick system for you know, easily putting together menus in games. And some game jams won't let you come along and kind of use systems you already have, some do. But I ended up building a toolkit that I'll use for game jams that allow it, where I can literally just drag in a nice basic kind of menu building system. Again, I still had a bit of a game with it, but the main focus was just being able to quickly get in and out of the game there with this menu system. And you know, I like, it wasn't a fully playable game, but I had that system I could use, and I'd achieved that goal again. Rover's goal, when I did that, we didn't have a full playable game. I just wanted to try out local co-op and test an art style I'd made, and we proved the art style, and we actually found it was really fun controlling these different vehicles and just sort of messing around in the environment. Again, had we have had more gameplay, I don't think we'd have realized with Rover that sort of just, you know, that there was fun in just not having any aims, I guess. You know, we'd be like, oh, can you test this? Just kind of let us know what you think whilst trying each other's games. And people were spending 20 to 40 minutes just driving around. Literally all you could do was drive around and kind of ramp off stuff and they really enjoyed it. They really liked the art style as well. It was literally just the most simple of terrain with some objects placed in there, and we had to take the controller back off people because we wanted to go home at that point. And yeah, you'll surprise yourself with what you make, especially if your goals aren't necessarily just finish a game. Is my big sort of bit of advice there.
Yeah,
Sometimes
could I jump
a
in?
nice aim is to let people, have their own aims when they play the game, right? And that's also a great aim. Yeah, go for it. Sorry, jump in.
No. Well, that's the nature of these calls. I think Tom spoke about something that is really important. I mean, the goal setting is very important to leverage the event for what it's worth. And I think that if you're working with a small team, which I recommend, because that's like 50 or even 99% of the fun of these jams is collaborating with people. I think that you should have your goals aligned. I think that people make a mistake when they think that all goals are like fit together nicely. I mean, if I enter a jam and I want to have as much fun as possible, fun is my number one metric, then of course I'm not going to have the difficult conversation about pivoting the game halfway through that might ruffle some feathers, And if I want to learn as much as possible, I should try something, like the procedural animation, and it might work out great, as in Tom's case, but it's very hard to, gauge how difficult that will be. And if I want to succeed in the rankings, I should do something that I'm comfortable with. And I should have the difficult conversations if necessary. So just making sure that your team wants to work in the same way you want to will reduce a lot of friction. I worked with these guys that at Housefire on a game jam after they've made the Eclipsium proto version. Was the Game Maker's Toolkit jam, where we took home first place in the creativity category. And I think the way that we managed to do that was, okay, we kind of like lucked out, caught lightning in a bottle with a little fun concept. But I think that we said like, okay, we want to try really hard for this jam. Okay, so during our brainstorming phase, we had a bit more of a cutthroat, like creative process where we said like, okay, it's not that idea that someone pitched wasn't interesting, but it's not like in our minds the winner. So we sat and we spent the first, it had to be 5 hours of the jam just thinking about the project, and I mean, that's dangerous because sometimes you just go around in circles, but we kind of felt like we knew what we were wanting to achieve that time around. And so just like Tom said, orienting your goals towards the jam is very important.
Yeah, I think the great benefit of that very constrained amount of time is that it forces you to make decisions, because otherwise you can run out of time. And then sort of bringing all that together is something really important. Now, I just want to move into the next sort of topic, really, which it kind of piggybacks perfectly off some of the things that we've just been talking about, which is managing goals. And Max, some of the things that you were saying very eloquently, the key from that I'm picking up really is about communication and being able to work with people that you're confident that you can communicate with, and you can tell them what you think. You can have those difficult, spicy conversations if needs be, and move forward together. Now, I'm interested in learning more about what you feel like the general impact of Global Game Jam has been on the various sort of ecosystems that you guys live in. And I appreciate we're all at completely different parts of the world, so everyone's story is that little bit different. I want to jump back to the Indian question, because you got the Game Dev India as a group. So you've got a group, a kind of national level group that reaches out and supports different kinds of events and things. And obviously we've got the work that we do with Global Game Jam, and we do that every year. We've got all these things and an entire program of events. We also have our Indie Studio Supporters program, and most of you here are actually members of that. And we actually have some huge plans ramping up in the new year with our Indie Supporters network, and we'll talk more about that on another day. But basically, we have this interesting network that obviously influences the way that you guys jam, right? So do you want to tell us more about that?
So India is a huge country. There's lots of people here in India, but the game industry here is still in very early stages. We have some very successful studios, but they're too far and too few. Uh, we started the whole Game Dev India group in 2009, and it started with I think the first game jam we did in 2010 had 10 people who were participating, and like nobody ended up making a game. From there, over the years, we increased up our participation. There are more people who joined the group. We started doing global game jam from around 2015, I think. Bangalore was the first city where we started, and then I think now this year we have about 13, 14 cities where global game jam would be happening in India. Uh, the biggest impact that we see that global game jam has helped create here in our country is uh, it has brought the whole community together. Earlier, people were doing game development in very small pockets, in isolation, spread all over the country. But now there is this sense of community, and there's a place where all of us belong. And for example, the Global Game Jam in Bangalore, which is the biggest site in India, has had a peak number of like almost 700 people participating at a jam.
That's amazing. That's a great number. It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and just the fact that you have these 700 other people around you with whom you're able to make games, you're able to take feedback, you're able to share in that journey, and share knowledge and share best practices. That has a compounding effect on the entire community. It helps push the domain forward. It helps other people to very quickly pick up the skill and develop the muscle that we were talking about. And that has been the biggest impact of doing this entire community in India.
Also, because of the format, it gives a unique opportunity for a lot of young people to sort of work with older people, veterans who are doing it for fun, or just as a ritual every year. So to be able to be in the proximity of them, those veterans, and to be able to exchange ideas, I think that's also a huge plus for this specific format.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of Global Game Jam in general is its strengthening community. And I've said it once and I'll say it again. I believe that Global Game Jam, we are the strongest and most welcoming community of indie game developers in the world. It is an amazing family of people from all corners, literally all corners of the world, working on similar things, on similar themes, or the same theme even, every year, alongside this additional program of events that we run with all these different opportunities. And it's really about the people. Games are a product of people.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. And I think the structure that you mentioned is really important. This idea that people come together face to face, they work together, try new things, learn new things, get a chance to present their games to these people in their community at the end. And if you only have just one group out of all of those guys in the room that decide, well, we're going to make a company out of this because we think we've really got something. And if you see that happen in every site around the world, you can see straight away that ripple effect that we're having on the grassroots indie movement. We're creating IP that form studios that then apply for micro grants and seed funding and things like that. And from there, you guys have just said very clearly yourselves, in India, as huge and as an amazing country as it is, it's still relatively embryonic, but we're seeing these huge steps forward in community building. And it's all off the back of these annual gatherings where people feel like they belong, and now they know about other people in the next town that they didn't know before. And that's really the strength of Global Game Jam in its community.
Just to add to that, Rich, for example, like I keep mentioning Bangalore as being one of the largest sites. Bangalore is part of a province called Karnataka here in India. And because of the series of activities that keep happening and the way the entire industry is, like Bangalore is also the Silicon Valley of India. So all the tech startups are here, and it's the biggest aggregation of the games industry in India. To the extent that because of all of these different activities and initiatives happening, we were able to make a good representation even to the provincial government. And Karnataka is one of the leading states in terms of grants and support that are being offered to game developers across the country. So these are some very tangible benefits of building a community, building a presence, and being able to showcase productive work happening and pushing a domain forward.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. And I just want to mention before I bring a few of the folks back in, is that quite often governments won't act until they see things happening.
Yes.
Global Game Jam is very good at making things happen. And when you've got all these people that suddenly pop up and now, oh, wow, all these games companies have just appeared from nowhere. And then they feel compelled to maybe, oh, well, let's start funding that. Maybe we can throw some money. We can see that there's some success. And you can see clearly that the success of Wukong and the effect that that's had on the Chinese games market and the inspiration that it provides to all the grassroots guys going forward. And I think that it's only a matter of time, really, before we probably see something from India that has a runaway success in the same vein. It's only a matter of time. And I think it'll be the same in multiple countries. It just needs that time to develop. Tom, I just want to circle back to you because in terms of impact on Global Game Jam, aside from the fact that your personal story where actually GGJ in of itself has kind of diverted you into this path of game development at a time where actually you were going through some real struggles. I think going back to the same point where when things begin to happen and the government sees it and they begin to add funding, I think the fact that you've been able to successfully work with government organisations such as Creative Wales, which is one of the local government organisations in our part of the world, in the UK and in Wales, it's been a great example. I don't know if you want to just talk a bit about, how you got to that point and some successes or challenges with that.
Yeah. So I mean, as I said, like I went to my first Global Game Jam when I was in university, which was a lot of fun. And then I had a big break from it. So I wasn't really kind of in contact with a lot of different people within the industry. Whilst I was working architectural visualization, it's kind of funny because like we were using Unity, still using the same 3D software. It's pretty much like the same processes for making games really for what we're doing. And pretty much everyone I was working with had done like game development in university or something. We just weren't making games. So I didn't really know of any game developers in Wales, really. Didn't really know if there'd be much of a scene. And I mentioned that I'd done Ludum Dare, which was great because I kind of felt quite isolated, staying at home, like making stuff. And then I ended up finding, at that point, I was like, well, if there are communities around the world elsewhere, there's got to be something in Wales. So going to, again, doing the Global Game Jam, and kind of remembering that existed. I then got introduced to a bunch of different people, and at the time I was working on a game called Fate. That was a personal project of mine, and that got me speaking to, I think it was Jack, one of the tutors at the uni, and he kind of was like, you're not one of the students here, because most of the people at that jam site were students from the university. So it was like, well, what do you do? So I kind of started showing him the game I'd been working on, and he was like, well, actually we run this thing called Games Talent Wales, where they sort of fund you to go to different events. And had I have not actually attended that, I never would have met him. I never would have done that, and that was kind of what gave me the beginning kickstart for everything, with my personal game projects. Again, we hit that point where I had to make that decision of we have that last event we were going to go to. That was the end of my funding for that game. And just having that opportunity, which again I was able to bring my next game, Global Game Jam game prototype to and build off of. If it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't have got anywhere near to being in the position we are now. So we took it there. When I ended up applying for funding, we'd kind of built up our demo. We'd proved our proof of concept through taking it to these events, actually having shown, we had photos of people playing our games, so we were able to go, well, we've discovered our market. We managed to even one thing I find really funny, everyone always talks about like having your elevator pitch or your like short description of your game. So for us, Rover is a cozy space rover photography game. I didn't necessarily write that myself. People told me what the game was. More so I'm at these events, people are playing it, they're like, oh, it's quite a cozy game, and I wasn't really thinking of it as being that genre necessarily. Like it is, like it definitely is, and we definitely lean into it, but kind of having people tell you, it's this, it's that, we think this, and it ended up becoming very sort of community led, even down to the description of the game, which kind of have found most of my projects have ended up going that way, where instead of telling people fully what it is, I've let people play it and tell me. Then I take their wording, and it seems to be the most understandable or digestible way of coming up with that. So kind of everything I'd learned from doing that, I was able to sort of put into my applications when going for funding. You have to have your proof of market research. You have to understand who your players are. Evidence of people playing, having done these events in general. Even that was especially as someone who didn't have industry experience necessarily. Like obviously I had the skill set from my previous job, but I didn't have the experience. I didn't have any shipped games behind me. So having these big prototypes that were built up into something a bit bigger, but then having had the funding from previous prototypes from these, that's what I was able to kind of go, well, actually, it's worth taking the risk on me because I had that kind of evidence and proof there, something to show for it. A lot of the other people who I did work with in my previous job, they've all pretty much found jobs now. But some of them really struggled. They didn't really have anything there, whereas I had this portfolio of game jam games that I'd made, connections I'd made. Straight away I was able to reach out to people and kind of ask for help. And kind of one of the reasons that made me choose to kind of put my personal project on hold and continue with Rover and take that risk was I wanted to help as many friends as I could as well, kind of start this studio really. Kind of felt like I went right off on a tangent there, but yeah.
Well, you answered the question, and I think it's a great example of you're in a situation and you kind of find a way through, which is what it's all about. Max, I just want to circle back to you because you mentioned of course that that your team, they were able to secure funding as well. I don't know if you were able to give us a quick overview of kind of what the setup is like in Sweden, for example, with funding and how well plugged it in and it is.
Well, Sweden is very, it has a large, footprint in the gaming industry, despite us only being 10, 11 million people compared to India, I guess. In this case, we've been very fortunate to body surf the IT wave very early, get a good infrastructure and a good social security, social safety nets. But Gothenburg, our scene is a lot smaller than Malmö and our capital Stockholm. We are kind of we are the second largest city, but we are the fourth largest game hub. So Global Game Jam, to give you the credit where credit is due, Global Game Jam is by far our largest collaborative, get every developer in the same room event that we have. And I mean, it's invaluable to us that we have that. And I mean, the game industry as a whole is very small, but it's almost incestuously small in Sweden. It's you tend to meet the same people. Attend 3 events, and you'll be invited back for drinks with the same fellas, so that's really cool. So the team spoke with another developer from a city called Skövde, which is not very far from Gothenburg, who made the excellent game Raft that made a big splash a bunch of years ago. And one of the devs, Semi, he decided to fund the development of Eclipsium and join, as some sort of partner, for that. So they were very fortunate, and me in turn was fortunate to be able to jump along on that journey. But no, Gothenburg needs the jam scene to continue, because as compared to what Kinshuk and Shagufta said earlier, we don't get the same sort of help from our municipality. Unless, honestly, we have Volvo, the car company, and Gothenburg is very, very happy with just promoting the automotive industry and giving the game section to the smaller city, Skövde, that I talked about earlier. So we are actively trying to get more participation from the municipality to support a jam space, because we've outgrown our usual locations 10 10x at this point. So, and we don't want to split people across multiple locations, and we really don't want people to jam at home if we can avoid it. I mean, that's good for some events, but I like the room is electric when we have the like the showcases at the end. I guess all your sites maybe do the same, that like you get some people like a jury or something that try all the games, and you just sit, you're so tired, just lounging in your chair trying not to die, and then you like all the games break, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's wholesome. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it is wholesome, but it's an event. It's always for us, and it always has been since almost the old days, going back sort of 13 or 14 years for us in my part of the world. It's an event on the calendar that everybody looks forward to, because you meet friends, and we have guys that come back every year. Some of them might have been ex-students or something like this, but they come back every year just because they want to meet up with people and come back and spend time. And we have guys from industry and things like that. And it's very, all jam sites are sort of very different in that sense, but it's a community, and people are they want to come back, they want to be part of it, and it's that bond. That kind of sense of connection is who you know and who you've kind of met and worked with at the jam is where a lot of these ideas come from. Quite often people don't attend a jam thinking, I'm going to create a company. That happens when things feel right, And I think Game Jam happens to be quite good at it, just because the balance of it is there. It's not a competition, so that competitive edge isn't there. It's just people being there together, working on stuff, and when it feels right, you kind of know, you get that sense, and that is where a lot of that kind of IP and critical spin out activity comes from, and that kind of bond that you get as part of that sense of time. I think I would like to look at some questions, because I'm acutely aware that we're running out of time. We actually had quite a few questions that were posted, so I thought it'd be cool just to sort of run through some of these as best we can. The first question is, are games founded at jams have enough potential interest for a wider audience in times of a content storm, as in there's a lot of content? And so I think the question is asking, how do you, or are games that are created at jams, popular, and how do they become popular? Or is that possible? I guess is the question that's being asked.
Yeah, you keep working on them, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I would say the jam creates the prototype, and then you guys form a studio around it because you feel that you have something, you iterate it, you grow it, and you evolve it.
To answer that question, I just wanted to give an example of a student game project that was built at a jam in India, which eventually went on to win a Dare to Dream, which is part of the BAFTA program. So, these kind of things do happen. It's about persevering and just building of the game.
Yeah, well, Konstantin, Serhii, you guys entered your game at the Control Disinfo Jam, and as you guys found out in the end, it turns out your game was popular and it ranked very highly out of a whole bunch of entries from a whole bunch of different countries, and that's an amazing success, right? And sometimes you don't start out thinking we're going to win and we're going to make this awesome thing. You just do it because it feels right, and if you're lucky, it resonates with people. And usually, if it feels right, it has that kind of vibe around it. You feel like you're going somewhere. And if you're at a jam and people are able to play your game and you can get that feedback, like Tom was alluding to, that's how you learn from that feedback and maybe advance your game from there. So I guess the quick answer to that initial question is prototype, iterate, get feedback, and if it feels right, then it probably is right. And I think that's maybe a good answer to that question.
Yeah. Yes. The last thing is like how would any game be made in this supposed landscape if not with an initial prototype? So a game jam is a good excuse,
Yeah, well, there are folks that attend jams to just create, and then pick the one item that was the most popular, and then that's going to be the game I'm going to make. And they use the jam to do that, right? And that's fine.
I got
another question. Oh, sorry.
I'll follow it there. Yeah, I think I like to do as well is like we did with Over, like I said. sharing your prototypes that you've made in game jams is also really valuable. If you stick it on somewhere like itch.io, for example, there have been plenty of games that have kind of randomly blown up for seemingly no reason, even like, maybe a streamer was just happened to spot that there was a game jam event going on. Some game jams are literally hosted just through itch.io even. And you'll have streamers or content creators or whatever literally looking through these events for games to play. Lead 'em Dare is a good example again, where people, like, because of the ranking system, you'll have some people making compilation playthrough videos where they'll look at, say, I don't know, the top 10 of each category with their playthroughs, and then if it's the right person, suddenly this very, very small prototype can blow up. And I can't think of the name of the exact game, but there was one where a lot of people played that. It ended up becoming kind of front page shown on itch.io because there was so much traffic after a bunch of content creators kind of caught wind of that game, had that trickle on effect, went viral. And this was literally a game that had been made in 72 hours. Very polished, very, very nice game, very well polished, really good, simple, like core loop. And then they ended up taking it on further to full release, but they already had like thousands of wish lists from the get-go, just because it got seen and was out there.
It had gone viral. Yeah.
But it wouldn't.
That is a good point.
If it wasn't shared.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't put it out there, I mean, of course, at the end of the GGJ, we have our site and people upload their games to our site. But obviously, if you want to maintain the development of that and keep showing it, then continuing to demo that out there with other platforms as well is like really important. Another question that we had was, what resources did you have at your disposal when you were starting your indie studio? I think we kind of answered that question, and everyone's story is a little bit different. In some cases, they had access to some funds. In some cases, they just had some friends or they met up at a jam. I guess the quick answer to that is, you don't need a huge budget and 10,000 people to make a great game. And frankly, we've seen in AAA game dev world, games that have had massive budgets and massive numbers of people still don't necessarily make any money. In fact, they lose a lot of money if you're unlucky. So it's about the people and about the idea. And I think it goes back to this idea of if it feels right, then it probably is right. And test it. I'll skip to the last question, which was, what was the hardest part of the journey of being in your indie studio from its creation to where it is now? I'm sensing things like money and keeping it going, motivation. I don't know. What's the quick answer to that? And then we'll segue very quickly into what's next for you guys before we call it a day. Max, you want to go first?
Yeah. So the question was the hardest part about keeping like the company going.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge being an indie dev?
Yeah, right. I think it's growing at a reasonable pace. I mean, first off, you have to see development as like both the fuel and the cost, and the game as the product that you obviously recoup with. And I think it's important to think of the game as like the most flexible part of what you got. I mean, you could just cut out the last boss of the game. I mean, no one's gonna know, probably, And I think the hardest part is honestly not keeping an interest up or being like, if you ever feel like, shit, I don't like this anymore, this feels really weird all of a sudden, I think that shouldn't be the case. I mean, you could hardly do anything more fun than making games. You should really soul search at that point. I think just, because I can speak to this, like Eclipsium has sold reasonably well. I mean, we are cruising towards like north of 1,700 reviews on Steam. I mean, so that you could do the math. That translates to some amount of sales at least. But like we're a team of 9. So we're kind of like too many people to support the type of games that we are looking to make, really. So we're kind of banking that the games we make and the brand that we're trying to build with our company will continue to be interesting to enough of the global population, at least, to sustain this operation. And I guess so we're looking forward to releasing our next title and stuff like that. We'll get to that later.
There's always the next title, the elusive next title, the next dream. Yeah. Serhii, Konstantin, what would you say? What you guys say? What's the biggest challenge to keeping your company kind of going whilst being students, by the way?
Actually, I guess it's it's more about motivation, and firstly about motivation, secondly about discipline, because we know where motivation ends, beginning discipline, and it's really complicated sometimes to also organize your time, your timetables, to manage to have opportunity to continue develop game, and it's I guess the most dangerous part for indie devs, that it's most of I don't know but like some part of indie devs just burn out after sometimes, and it's really important to have life work balance, like strong like planned timetables and good motivation and discipline. I guess it's the casings.
No, I think it's really important. Planning out your day. I know it sounds like the most boring thing you would ever think of, but actually, in this modern world where we're all super busy and there's a million and one things to do, you have to think about what you're going to do for your day. I'm a father of two. Max, you say you're a family man as well, and I'm sure the people may be as well. And when you have children, you have to plan your day around different activities, and sometimes there just isn't time to do all the things that need to be done. So then you have to prioritize, and these are all skills that are really important. Okay. So what then is next for the future? And I'd really like to just end this session just to hear what is next. What's the next big thing that you guys are going to be doing in the nearest future, apart from obviously jamming a Global Game Jam, because we're all going to be doing that. Apart from that, what's the next big thing? Tom, for you, in 20 seconds or less.
So Q1 2026, we're looking at releasing the early access version of Over, and then continuing from there. We also have a few other projects that can't speak about right now lined up, but there's a lot of exciting things coming. But yeah, everybody wishlist Over on Steam.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great game. Played it a bunch of times. Seen it since its infancy. Very good game. And if you haven't played it, definitely should. Kinshuk.
So for our game, we're already running like a sort of an open play test, even though we are at a very early prototype stage. So we were working with the model train hobbyists around the globe to build a product that they would love to play. For us, the next big thing is that in the early Q2 2026, we're focusing on getting our demo out and start the wishlist campaign for the game.
Awesome. Max.
Yeah, so hi. Well, I'm on parental leave. The rest of the team is working on a small project that will be released. I don't think I can say the release date, but if you start to look at Twitter right now, I just think they're starting to push some super early stuff. And me and a friend, we've been continuing working on the last Global Game Jam game for this year. So we've been working on that continuously, and we are cruising towards trying to secure a publishing deal for that game. So we work on the weekends, and besides that, I'm working on a narrative text editor that I'm coding up to allow to make a future pitch for Housefire. I think I'm allowed to say that, or otherwise cut the VOD. So
yeah, it's too late now. We'll have to unhear that if there was any secret things in there. Serhii, Konstantin, what's next for you guys?
So we're planning to release a demo for our game the next month, and also we're planning to release our game in the next spring. So right now we're doing a wishlist campaign. We want to participate in the next Steam Next Fest to gain some wishlist also. And we're hoping for a good release and further developments.
What's the name of the game?
It's Before the Silence. You can wishlist it on Steam.
Yeah, do so. Definitely do so. And what's next for Global Game Jam? Well, Jammer registration has just opened this week, and we are accumulating new sites every day. So if you hit our globalgamejam.org website and look for by location. You can find the sites that are nearest to you. If you can't find a site that's near to you, let us know and we'll help you out with that, because there may well be one in the works that just hasn't quite been approved just yet. And if you're interested in hosting a site, of course, and being part of this amazing community that we've just been speaking all about, then jump on there, host a site, get started. There's never a dull moment, and it's never too late to do so. Site registration continues to run through, and we'll do so right the way through into January. And we'll be planning a whole bunch of different things for Jam Prep Week, the week before the main event, and we'll have a whole host of different webinars and things going on there. And like I've said, we have some huge plans for our indie supporters network that's going to be ramping up in the new year as well, in conjunction with a whole bunch of different partners. So really looking forward to that. So I think we're just about out of time for this episode, and I'm sad because I could chat with you guys all night, and it's been amazing to hear your stories from all different parts of the world. So first, congratulations on doing so amazingly well, starting out in such a small way in a jam, and then going on this amazing journey and building these studios around it. It's amazing to hear these great stories. And that's all for this week, folks. I'll see you in another episode. But for now, we'll all say goodbye.
Bye, guys. Have fun at the jam.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you soon.
Have fun.
Catch you in the next one.